problem is the government stops that from happening. I think the way
Why?
the government
Why do
tries
they
to
stop
solve it
that from happening?
incentivizes the bad situation, because local charities, right? If you have a local ministry that's like, hey, we're going to take people in, they can set their local rules, right? Hey, if you want to come stay here where we're letting people set up tents and you're safe from the police and say, if you want to do that, you have to live by our rules. And each private place can set their own rules. Like some place could be like, hey, we're okay with weed, but you can't smoke crack. Hey, we don't want to have you doing anything. Or, hey, we're a free for. Let those individual places choose what works best for them, what they're able to manage, and let them reallocate those resources. Because the way the federal government does it is not helping people. It's just not, at least not on the ground, or maybe it's different other places. But from what I see, they're actively making things worse by incentivizing bad behavior. And at the federal level, I argue that the war on homelessness only creates more homelessness, because the way they structure federal and state dollars, they have all these municipalities doing what they call a pit count, which is a point in time count where they go around and they count all the homeless people. And they're like, hey, we've got 200 homeless people. We've got 500 homeless people. And then they go to the federal government and they say, hey, we have this many people. And each person accounts to dollars coming back to that municipality to spend on the problem. Well, if you really understand economics, and I think as Bitcoin guys, you understand, well, what's the incentive to the government? Well, the government's like, hey, if we have more homeless people, we get more money.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole system is broken. And if the only way to break that is to actually put it in the hands of people who take on risk, like as Bitcoin guys, right? If you buy a crypto, I'm a big Bitcoin purist, but I know Shannon loves all his shit coins. But if you're going to buy a crypto, you're taking the risk. If it goes to shit, you're the one who loses out. The problem with federal dollars is the upside is in many cases, privatized to the special interests, and all of the losses are subsidized by the taxpayer. If you take that out, and anybody who's saying, hey, I want to make a difference with homelessness, they now have risk. If they do a good job and they take care of homeless, more people will donate. But if they go out there and they do something shitty and make the problem worse, people aren't going to donate. They're going to fold. You at least create a system where risk is now being bared by the people who are trying to solve the problem, which will at least incentivize coming up with economically viable and quite frankly, viable solutions. Because if you're incentivizing, hey, we'll give you dollars based on having more homeless people, what politician's like, hey, we need more money. If we have more homeless people, we get more.
Our governor Jared Polis and the new mayor Mike Johnston have been busting in like thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands of immigrants from Venezuela, and so now they're all like standing on the street in the cold with nowhere to live.
Thousands of more homeless
people with nowhere to live, and I feel terrible for all these people with what's going on in their country. But it's like, okay, can they get a license so they can get a fucking job? No, because the government makes that hard. Can they get housing? No, because some big housing contractor needs to come in, like BlackRock, to build affordable housing, and then the immigrants can live there through some state-funded program, and then they'll vote Democrat again. And so Denver's kind of not as good as it probably was last time you were here.
So I mean, if you go back,
I do like Boulder a little bit more. I probably,
Yeah. I love Boulder.
If you go back to your example of the church, what was the reason that they shut that down? And going back to what you're saying about how the federal government handles homelessness, like how are they actually handling it? Like instead of having local communities support these people, what's going on now?
Yeah, I mean the current status quo, right? So motivations are tough, right? Like motivations, knowing what's in the hearts and minds of the people making the decision. All I can do is make a logical case, follow the logic, follow the money, and make a speculative opinion, which I think the root of it I hit on, right? Is
you're saying you don't know their intention, but you can make some assumptions.
I can tell you the mechanism that they used, right? So here's the mechanism that they used to rack up $70,000 in fines on this pastor. So while this was all going on, and we knew that there was a need,
$70,000
for one church.
For one church, right? And thankfully we went to court. We got it before a judge, and basically how it all ended was, basically he complied with all of the government's demands, did exactly what the government did, and in exchange for basically bowing down and kissing the ring, they agreed to just ignore the charges and ignore all of that money as long as you stay on your knees and keep kissing the ring, right? So that's how it ended. But how the mechanism that they used to do it, right, is he was basically the only essentially truly compassionate shelter, right? Like you had the Salvation Army, which has a no drug policy, and he took the approach, as a pastor, he said, I'll let anybody here, but I want to offer substance abuse counseling. I want to offer mental health treatment. I want to, hey, if you're here, I don't care that you're on drugs, just like don't bring it into the church, keep it in your tent kind of thing. And if you're here on the property, you got to come either to church or to counseling or something there. And to me, I want like 1,000 people trying to do that. Like, I don't think that I can centrally plan the right homeless policy for every city here. But what I do know is that people in those communities, if the government wasn't assessing them with $70,000 fines for trying to fix the problem, they'd probably be able to come up with something, right? But every time someone even tries, the government is like, if people complain, like I'm sure you guys know, people call the cops over dumb shit all the time. You see somebody that you don't like the look, oh, hey, this is this weird guy walking down the street. Like people call the cops over dumb shit. So they're like, oh, we got 1,000 calls, some of them drug related, some of them whatever. But they basically are like, you're a public nuisance. So because you're a nuisance, and they used essentially nuisance laws and zoning laws. So one of the things that we needed is he needed space as the encampment was growing. So I got together with Spike Cohen, who is the founder of View of the Power. He was the 2020 Libertarian vice presidential candidate. And we got together and we raised money to transport 2 donated construction trailers, right? So a construction company that has these big trailers says, we'll donate these that you can convert into like a substance abuse center where you can have like an office and treat people. And, it basically amounted to 4,000 square feet of space. So they were donated. We raised $7,000 to arrange for the transport about 100 miles from the construction company to the church, and had them set up. And they basically said, since we weren't zoned and approved to do this, and the way we did it is we basically said in public, in public expression during a city council meeting, we told them we were going to do this, that there's a need for space. Yeah. You're complaining about people being out in tents. We're going to bring space. We told them there, but because we didn't go through that, they're like, you didn't get the zoning. So they racked up something like a $250 a day charge per trailer. There were 2 trailers, and they waited, I think, 4 months to actually tell us that they were fining. So they just all at once said, here's $500 a day for 4 months.